Billy Creekmore, Chapter 5. A voice cries out, and I do my best to help a runaway in the middle of the night. The full moon warn't more than a few days later. I waited till everyone was asleep, then I took a wander out behind the dormitory, thinking that maybe I'd find a snakeskin draped across a fallen branch. Puffy clouds collected here and there, then stretched thin across other parts of the sky. I headed off through a clump of bushes and slinked between trees. Wind rustled the bare branches. I searched in the tree roots, but I warn't feelin' lucky. I was ready to turn back when all of a sudden somebody jumped out from behind the bushes and grabbed me round my neck. "Don't yell or I'll kill you, I swear I will," cried a terrible voice. He was yelling in a whisper, and if you've ever been attacked at night, you know what I mean. "Do you promise not to yell? Do you promise? If you do, I'll let you go." "I promise," I said, choking out the words. "Okay then, now put your hands on your head and turn round slowly." I did just what he said, but when I turned around and saw who it was, I couldn't help breaking my word. It was Meek Jones, and he was holding a broken branch in one hand like he was ready to hit me. "For land's sake, Meek!" "Billy," he said, dropping the branch, "I didn't know it was you. Wouldn't have grabbed you like that if I'd 'a known. Don't hold it against me none. I'm awful desperate." The moon come away from the clouds and poured some light on us, just enough for me to get a good look at him. He was ragged and bone-thin, and his right hand was wrapped up in a dirty bandage. "Why, what's happened to you, Meek? You look like a beggar." "I expect I am a beggar. I got burned. I lost most of my hand in the glass factory." He unwrapped some of the bandage for me to see. Oh, it was awful. There warn't nothin' left of his fingers but little stumps covered over with thin, shiny skin. How'd a fire do that? It warn't a fire that burned me. It was molten glass. The boy next to me dropped the rod he was blowing, and melted glass splattered on my hand. Now I can't apprentice no more, and the only job I'm good for is sweeping the floor. "Does it hurt you?" "Oh, yes. It throbs and burns something terrible, but they don't care. I'm no use to 'em now since I can't learn to blow glass with one hand. Why, they won't even let me sleep in the boarding house with the rest of the boys since I'm not making enough money to pay for my bed. They make me sleep on the factory floor. There ain't no future for me there, Billy, so I run off. I ain't got no money or food, so I thought I'd come here first to see what I can take from the kitchen." "But you've been working there over 3 months now. Didn't you save up any money?" Meek shook his head, staring at the ground. "No, Billy, it ain't nothin' like we thought. You got to buy your own blowing rods, then pay for your bed and your meals, and if you break anything, you pay for it. Seems like all you do is break things when you're first learning. At least I did, especially since it's so hot and crowded in the furnace room. Plus, after a couple of hours of staring into the furnace firing the glass, my eyes wouldn't see right. It seemed like I was going blind, so I bumped into people and dropped my rod and broke things. If you're lucky, you make 65 cents a day, but once they deduct the price of your meals and bed and your breakages, all you've got is a few pennies. The factory took all the money I saved up to pay for the doctor when I got burned, so I ain't got a penny, and I'm hungry. You'll help me, won't you, Billy?" "Why, sure I will, Meek. You slept right next to me for almost 5 years. Course I'll help you." I told him it was best if I went alone, since it'd be overall less noisy if only one person raided the kitchen. Besides, I know it real well. Go hide among the windows, and I'll head over there when I'm through. I'll hoot like an owl, and you hoot back till we find each other." The door to the kitchen was locked, but I lifted a window easy enough and climbed through. I put a wedge of cheese, some apples, and a loaf of bread in an old cloth sack. It had long straps, and I figured it wouldn't be no hindrance for Meek to carry it across his shoulder. I looked around a bit more and added a bottle of apple cider and one of the dry sausages that Mr. Beetle ate for his lunch. I moved quick and steady, as if I was used to breaking into places and stealing every day of my life. It occurred to me that Meek might need a knife and some money, so I took one of Peggy's carving knives and looked behind some cans in the pantry where I knew she hid a little pouch of money to pay the delivery boys. I felt a pang of guilt when I dropped it into the sack, for I knew Mr. Beetle might yell at Peggy or beat one of the boys when he found out he was robbed. But I figured that Meek needed the money more than anyone else right now. He looked so scrawny, and his hand was something awful to see. I left quiet as I came, then ran toward the river. I hooted a couple of times, and Meek hooted back, and sure enough we met up fine. He just about grabbed the sack of food out of my hands, taking big bites of the sausage and cheese and washing them down with the cider. He used the wrist of his injured hand to help him hold things on account of his fingers were too maimed to use in any way at all. "You're awful hungry, Meek," I said. "Yes, I am." He wiped his lips with the back of his good hand. "Mr. Calder keeps us even hungrier than the beetles." He reached into the sack and pulled out the pouch of coins. "What's this? Money? Land sakes, Billy, you're a wonder!" "I thought you could use it. Where are you headed?" "Don't know. Thought I'd follow the river a couple miles into Albright. Maybe I could get a job in a store. I'm no good at fine work any more. Can't see myself over being much of a carpenter, which is something I used to think I'd like to be. But I can still sweep and clean and haul things about. I tell you, Billy, the glassworks is a terrible place, even worse than here." "I believe you, Meek. I've never known you to lie." "And I ain't lying now. It's awful work. The furnaces are so bright. I heard they'll blind you by the time you're 25. And they don't give you no water or breaks in the fresh air. You could faint away from heat exhaustion, and the foreman don't care. I seen a boy die there once. He hadn't worked there for more than a week, and it made him sick. He was vomiting blood all night and died the next day." And then Meek dropped his head and started shaking like he was crying, but no sound came out, and there weren't no tears. He stopped soon enough, then got up and slung the sack of food across his shoulder. "Tell the other boys what I said about Mr. Calder in the factory. Tell them I said anyone who's sent there should figure out some place to run off to soon as they can." I told him I would. Then I wished him good luck and told him to mind himself along the river. The current's dreadful rough in some places. I watched him slip into the willows, and the last I saw of him was the white sack I gave him. I could see a tiny bit of it between the trees, faint in the dark like a moth.